Joining us today for the Interschool Council's February roundtable. A sincere thank you to our guest, Amy Buckman, who's the LMSD Director of School and Community Relations, for being with us today. In shifting this program to a more cooperative and interactive form of communication, we ask that everyone here, both in the room and those joining us through Zoom, to treat Ms. Buckman and all of our subsequent guests with the utmost respect and appreciation for her being here today. This meeting, as with all of our roundtable meetings, will occur in the spirit of cooperation, open communication, and mutual respect. In order to enable our participants to equitably ask questions, we ask that when you're called upon to ask a question, you only ask one question at a time. You can always ask a second question after others have had a turn to ask their first. In addition, we'll be allowing those on Zoom to ask questions throughout the meeting, and their participation will be coordinated by our Vice Presidents of Communications. Before we get started, we wanted to share with you all of our upcoming exciting ISC events. We invite you to submit nominations for the 2026 ISC You Matter Award. Nominate a teacher or staff member who makes a difference in your child's life. Also, students are welcome to make direct nominations. Submissions are due this Friday, February 20th. We would also like to invite you to the ISC Art Show, which is open to the public from March 7th to March 14th at the Mainline Art Center, with an opening day reception on March 7th from 1 to 4 p.m. This week-long exhibit features hundreds of pieces of student artwork, which are selected by teachers from all of the 11 schools in our district. Back this year, please join us for the opening reception. It's been a few years since we've had that, so we're excited to bring it back. On March 17th, we'll host our next roundtable meeting, and our guests will be Dr. Lauren Walker and Dr. Stephanie Graziosi-Hibbs from LMSD Student Services, and this meeting will be held in person as well as on Zoom. Also on March 17th, please join us for the next parent education program, Dealing with Anxiety and Stress as a Parent, featuring Dr. Tony Warner. This event will be co-hosted with the Committee for Special Education and held exclusively on Zoom at 7 p.m. For more information on the art show, the You Matter Award, or any of our upcoming presentations, please visit and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And to view any of our past roundtables or parent ed events, please visit the LMSD Interschool Council ISC YouTube page. Our meeting today will be captioned, recorded, and posted to the ISC YouTube channel. And let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Buckman.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to start. Okay. Thank you. So I guess our first question is if you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to join us here at Lower Merion School District.
So I'm an LM alumna. I went to Penguin Elementary School, Ardmore Junior High, may it rest in peace, and Lower Merion High School, and then pursued a career as a television news reporter. So I worked at Channel 6 for 25 years. And was ready for a change. And so I moved sort of to the other side of the news biz, which was public relations, and worked, sort of combined my love of journalism with PR and worked at the Philadelphia Inquirer, Daily News and Philly.com for 3 years. And then when this job opened up, it just felt like I could come home. And my 3 sons all graduated from Lower Merion. So I've lived here all of my life, except for 7 years, 4 years when I was in college and 3 years when I got my first TV job in Iowa. So it's, I came in with the perspective of being an alumna, being a parent, being a resident, a taxpayer, and having a lot of history in the district. So that's
Great.
great.
Can you share what your department looks like?
So we are a teeny tiny department. It's myself. I have an administrative assistant, Anna Ahura, who also doubles as a photographer during the day. So he goes to a lot of school events. And Dan Kapkin, who is our multimedia content producer. So he does a lot of what you see on the website and print materials that we do, like our newsletter and our calendar. He laid that out. So first year we did our print calendar all in-house. We didn't use an outside designer, and Dan did all that. So I rely on him a lot. And we have a freelance photographer that we also bring in for night and weekend events.
Mhm.
Byron Purnell had filled that position for 6 years. He started in COVID, but he just got a job with the city of Philadelphia with Mayor Sherrell Parker's administration as a
Wow.
photographer. So we just lost Byron, but luckily we were able to bring back Dan Lunar, who had done the job before Byron, and he was open again and able to come back, and he's familiar with all the districts. So he'll be our night and weekend photographer for the rest of the school year. And
Oh, that's great.
yes, get stuff right in.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, good. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the purpose of school and community relations in Lower Merion School District and how you handle communication both within and outside the district?
So it's a lot. I'm my job is to strategically communicate both internally and externally with all stakeholders in the district, and to ensure that our messaging is coordinated, that our messaging reaches its target audiences, and that it's understandable and accessible. So my job varies very much from day to day. Some days I can be helping principals write a letter about an incident that occurred at school. Some days we can be doing things like laying out a calendar or community newsletter. I do board meeting, like one of my things on my task list for today is the board meeting highlights. I start drafting those before the board meeting, which will be held tonight. I'm sort of the first stop for all of the info to LMSD emails. So a lot of it is just directing people to where they can find information that they need and they want. I also am the liaison for the Education Foundation, the Alumni Association, and a lot of the parent organizations like the ISC and the HSAs, CSE. And so just and then as well as community organizations that want to get messaging across to the school community. So things like the Little League and the Basketball Association and the Scouts and the libraries when they have programs. So all that comes through our office.
Of coordination.
Yeah, but it's good because it's different style. I never know what to expect.
Okay. And what do you see as success in this role? What does it look like beyond positive press or low complaint volume?
Actually, low complaint volume is a huge accomplishment. So, it's the nature of dealing with the public that when things are quiet, that's actually a really good thing. And so that is actually a measure of success. Like I wouldn't write that off. When people know where to get the information they want, when they feel like they're receiving, receiving the messages they want to hear, then they're happy, and you don't hear a lot. No one ever gives, I always say, no one ever gives a Yelp review when their shirt comes back from the dry cleaner pressed and perfect, right? It's only when someone left a steam iron mark on it that they write a Yelp review. We have a really large constituency. I mean, people think of, okay, we have 8,600 students, we have maybe 15,000 parents, but our constituency is much larger than that because it is the entire community of all of our residents and taxpayers in Lower Merion and Narberth. And they all have very different concerns and priorities. And we're never going to make everybody happy all of the time, but the importance of clear messaging is to explain the why of why decisions are being made. And so your hope is that even if people don't like the decision, at least they feel like they've been heard and they understand why the decision has been made. In some cases, that's easier than others. There are things that involve students and discipline and personal information that we can't share publicly, and that becomes challenging. And, I was a parent of 3 kids who went through this district. I wanted to know what was going on in my kids' schools as well. And I understand, like, your kids are your most precious people in your lives, and you have concerns about them, and it's scary when things happen and you can't get all the details. So we have to walk that line of sharing information that we can share, as reliably as we possibly can, but also protecting student privacy. And that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this next question you sort of just answered, but as you mentioned, there are some decisions that are unpopular with parents. And yet, like, trust is a really important component, I'm sure, for you to be able to do your job, for us to, work with our teachers and staff. Like, how do you work to build and maintain trust when people are unhappy about decisions that are going on.
I think one of the biggest
So, on the phone,
challenges,
do not disturb. I apologize.
I think one of the biggest challenges we've had, obviously, over the past, 6, 7 years has been leadership changes at the top. We've had
Mhm.
more superintendent transitions
It's been
than
a lot.
I ever imagined, that we would go through in this district. And that brings with it a set of challenges because each person that comes in has a different personality, a different approach to the
Mhm.
role, different priorities. At the same time, our school board changes, and so you have school board members that have different priorities. And that really is a challenge to try to build trust when there's so much sort of turmoil going on and things do change. I think Dr. Nelly, having come in, has really taken his time to get a lay of the land and is very student focused and student centered when he makes decisions. And he says this a lot, and I believe it, like, you can't just say, trust me. Trust is built over
Mhm.
time. And so I think that once people understand that there are consistent reasons for decision making, things aren't being decided, oh, I'm going to do this to please this group and that to please that group.
Mhm.
We're going to look at student-centered decisions, make the decisions that the administration and the board think are best for students, and then try to explain them. I think that that's just something we have to allow time. Dr. Anelli hasn't even been here a year yet. And so, but I think he is starting to build that. And hopefully, people aren't so, I don't think jaded is the right word, but so frustrated maybe with all the changes that they will allow him the grace to, observe what needs to be fixed and give him time to fix it.
Mhm.
Knowing that he is really doing it with the students' best interest in mind.
Um, how do you ensure the district communication reaches and represents families who are less visible or less engaged?
So that's where a lot of our work with community partners comes in. For example, we just launched our kindergarten first grade registration for next year. So it just opened last week. And that's where sort of personal relationships that I've built with outside community organizations come in. So people have probably heard of Neighbors Helping Neighbors on the main line. Munira Walker, excuse me one second. She's in touch with a lot of families that don't necessarily have the resources and the access that many of our families do. And so she's one of the first people I always reach out to. I'm like, okay, we're going to open K1 registration. Here's our flyer in English. Here's our flyer in Spanish. Can you please share that with your constituency? We have relationships with a lot of other faith organizations and food banks and things like that around the community. And so I have that list, and I will reach out and I'll say, hey, like I said, we're opening K1 registration. Can you help us get the message out? If you have a preschool or a daycare in your church, can you pass this along to the members of your faith organization so that the parents in preschool, because they're the ones who know the other preschool parents who will get them to register and start that word of mouth. We've also taken some really concrete steps. I know, Lisa, you were on the Achievement Imperative Task Force, which was really instrumental in this, but we a couple of years ago, I ensured that we're using translation in School Messenger. So when families now register, they tell us what languages they want to get their messages from school in, and that goes into the student profile in PowerSchool. And when they get messages, they're translated into the language they're most comfortable in. That's really something that we've put into place in the last, I don't know, maybe it's like 4 years now. But we do that. Our ELD team, our English language development team, is also really instrumental in helping us with messaging for our non-English speaking families, and also inroads into the communities that those families are a part of. We have people who have volunteered to be translators, people that have maybe been in this country longer than other people who have more familiarity with the district. And so the principals actually have a list of, here are people that speak these languages that are willing to help out. If you're having an event and you want to outreach, you want to have some folks there to make people feel welcome. And it's not just school events they can help with. They can also, where is there a dancing class? Where is there a Korean language school? Where are these other cultural organizations that can help me feel a part of the community? And so just sort of being a little bit of a clearinghouse for that, working with our ELD team, that's really part of what we do as well.
Before I ask the next question, I'm remembering hearing somewhere that there were like I can't even remember. I just remember being astonished at how many languages.
Oh, yeah, I have the number. I mean, we have 10 top languages, but we have well over 20 languages that are spoken by like more than just one or two people
Yeah,
in
it's
the
amazing.
district. And the number of English language learners in our schools, our schools are getting more diverse every year, and the number of English language learners is increasing every year as well. And so it's really important, we know kids do better in school when their parents can be engaged, their families can be engaged, and they're more comfortable, and they find people they make connections with. That's why we talk about building belonging so much. And it's not just for the kids, it's for their parents and guardians as well.
Next question is, how do you prepare for and manage crisis situations, which unfortunately do tend to happen as much as we would love for them all to go away? How do you kind of prepare for that?
So I think my news background gives me sort of a unique perspective on crisis communication. I was someone that would do, 20 live shots in the course of a day from an emergent situation. And so there are multiple layers. I always talk when I actually coach people in crisis communications, and I always talk about sort of thinking of things of concentric circles going out. And so the innermost circle that we always talk about are our students and staff and their safety in the moment. That's always the first thing that we have to pay attention to when there's any sort of emergent situation. And so assuring safety is the first inner circle. Beyond that is then communicating to the people that are actually involved in the emergency situation. That is more important than external communication. And so, we have processes in place for that. We have the alert system, which is something that's built into our buildings, which puts notifications on computers and shuts things down and things like that, and notifies emergency personnel outside of the district. And then as we start looking at those circles broadening out, obviously once we have the people in the emergency situation, then we want to tell the families of the people in the emergency situation. And then sort of my most outer ring is all the media relations work that I have to do. The challenge is that, in a world with devices and social media, sometimes those things can happen 1, 2, 3 within seconds of each other. And so kids in a building and think something happened, and they communicate with their parents, and then the parents jump on social media and say such and such is happening as if it's fact. Really, their student may not really know what's going on. And so that's why, it's important for us to communicate to the people in the moment, and also remind people that we will be communicating with them at an appropriate time. And I understand, like, when something scary is going on, like a second feels like an hour.
A long time, yeah.
And when your kid's at, so, we may send out a message right away, and all it'll say is, there's an incident going on in the building, but all students and staff are safe. And that may be all it says.
Right.
Because that can't be my top priority. I have to make sure the kids and the staff are safe, right? And then, like, okay, telling parents, like, I'm not gathering details to tell you right now.
Right.
We're ensuring kids are in a safe place. We're ensuring staff are, making sure kids' needs are met. And then we move outward from that. And so, it's challenging, but we do have in place the tools we need, and we've had certainly many times to practice, unfortunately. Yeah.
Knowing that, exactly as you're saying, parents might get a call or an email from a student. What do you advise parents in that situation to do, other than just kind of to hold on and sit tight?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's like much easier said than done, right? But I think the most important thing is for parents to reassure their children that they should be following the instruction of the people in the building, because the teachers and staff are getting the information they need to protect kids, and not to, follow someone else, whoever else's direction that might be. Our staff go through emergency training. We practice with law enforcement practices in our buildings. So we're prepared for all sorts of emergencies, and the staff rely on their training, and they care about the kids, and they know the kids, and they have procedures in place. So it's important just to remind kids that they need to listen to the students and staff, and then also just try to take a step back and know that, whisper down the lane is not a good way of getting information, and that the district will communicate what we can, when we can, but that's not going to be the first priority. The first priority is making sure the kids and staff are safe.
Mhm.
We'll do it as quickly as we possibly can.
Mhm.
And sometimes, again, let me add just one more thing. There may be reasons why we're not communicating additional details, and that may be to keep kids safe, and that may be at the request of law enforcement or mental health professionals or things like that, depending on what the situation is that's going on. And so there may be reasons why people at home aren't getting a huge amount of details on something, especially if it's still in progress.
So you spoke a little bit about this before, but how do you end up balancing the transparency with legal and ethical constraints when you say like, and I know you acknowledge parents and you as a parent as well
Yeah.
did, like you want to know if there's something happening in your kid's school, especially when it comes to a staff or a student related matter. I'm sure there are a lot of constraints that you're dealing with, but how do you balance that?
So one of the things that I always like think about in my head is what if it were my kid who made the mistake,
Mhm.
whatever the action was. And, look, we're here to teach kids. They don't come into school knowing everything there is to know, and kids make mistakes. Most often, they're not terrible kids, right? They're kids that have made a mistake for whatever reason. They made a lapse in judgment, or they said something they shouldn't have said, or they brought something to school they shouldn't have brought to school, or they did something to someone else they shouldn't have done. And I just feel like giving grace is really important in those moments. And the way look, my three sons are wonderful. I love them. They're grown up. They've made it to, manhood, whatever. But they made mistakes. They did dumb stuff, like in middle school. Like find me a kid that didn't do something dumb in middle school. You just don't know. Like they did it, trust me. And so again, and this is where I think, again, the social media and those instant communications really can have tough ramifications on kids. And so, we do, like, legal counsel will tell us, and we know like where privacy limits are for sharing information about kids. And we don't want to damage, we don't want the school district and information that the district has released to damage a kid more than anything that they've done.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't want to, we want to turn things into learning opportunities. It doesn't mean that punishments aren't handed out. Kids have consequences of their actions, and we don't need to tell everybody what those consequences were either, any more than you would want the whole world to know if it was your kid that did something they shouldn't have done. And so, we try to walk that line. Usually, I mean, not usually, I would say always, if there's a victim of an incident, that student and their family know to what extent we can share with them what is going to happen. They may not know, did they get a 1-day suspension or, 3 days of detention, but they'll know there's going to be, in alignment with what's in our student handbooks, there will be consequences. And there may be things that are going on beyond the school that are consequences that we don't even have the right to tell you about. So it's a line, and it's hard. And like, I totally get people want to know everything. And look, I was a news reporter, like it was my job to find out stuff. So I totally get that inclination that people have. But again, it goes with trust, it goes with consistency. It's one of the reasons that we're now, there was a lot of people in the community wanted to know like what's going on with hate speech in the school. So we are now posting like quarterly incidents of hate speech by school and by category, so people know. And we have, alongside this is there, we now have a data system in place, which is one of those things that took a while to get into place, so that this is being reported. So now we have data, we're sharing that data. We're not saying, Johnny said X to Susie or Tommy said Y to Billy, but we're saying at this school, there were this many comments that had to do with this topic.
Because I know we're going to get follow-up questions on that. Can you share where that's being shared? Is that?
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah. If you go to the Making Practices Public page, there's a icon that says hate speech tracking, and you just click on that.
Okay. Thank you.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, can I ask just a
Yeah.
follow-up to
Mhm.
this? I know that we've seen some things come out about the change in the policy of mandated reporting for weapons being brought to school. Can you talk a little bit about what that change means?
Sure. So the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania had, and I don't remember the number, excuse me, but there was
You don't need to know that.
law that went into effect at the beginning of the year that mandates that any weapon brought to school requires communication back to the families in that school. The definition of weapon is very, very broad. So it can, and our definition actually in our policy of weapon is very broad. So a replica, a toy, that falls under weapon. What we've established is sort of a 3-tier notification. We will notify anytime, like that's what the law says we have to do. But a tier 1 notification is like we've had a couple tier 1s. We had a kid that brought in like a foam samurai sword that the child made. It's a weapon, like you could butt people with it, right? A tier 2 would be more like, and this has happened as well, like a real weapon, like a knife, but it could be like left in the backpack from scouts over the weekend, and then another kid sees it in the backpack. We're going to tell you, yes, the knife was brought to school, but there was not like an actual threat. Tier 3 is there was a weapon brought with intent to do something. And so we are notifying school communities anytime, but that's why we share it ahead of time, sort of what those tiers are, so you don't get a lump in your throat and your heart palpitating every time you get one of these weapons notifications. Because again, a foam samurai sword is not really
The same thing.
gonna cause
And what
that much
about
harm.
threats of where threats of weapons fall into that?
So
Report.
so threats are set. This is the
That's something
weapons,
separate.
right? The weapons is actual like physical items.
And that just goes out to the specific school that.
Yeah, except in there are some cases. So we have like Kinwood and BC share a campus. So there may be incidents where we will report to both schools if something's on the playground between the schools or something like that. And also if that's the same thing if we have alarms go off because they're on one campus. And same thing with like the administration building in Lower Merion High School. We're on the same campus. So there are some things where there's crossover.
You mentioned social media just a minute ago. So can you talk about the role that social media plays in shaping kind of the public understanding of the district, which we all know is happens. And where do you draw boundaries on that? Like how do you?
So Lower Merion School District has a Facebook page and an Instagram page. Those are our official social media pages. Platforms. Occasionally people will tag me personally. I will answer a direct question on like an HSA page or something like that. It's like, is there school Thursday? If it's a factual, like I will say, here's the calendar. Yes, there's school Thursday. I will not get into debates with people on social media. I cannot represent future actions that the school board may or may not take on social media because I communicate what the school board decides, right? Like I don't project. I can't project the future. And so, and I think we all know that social media thrives on conflict. The algorithms are written so that controversy shows up more in your feed. And so I would just advise, and this is what we teach our kids in digital citizenship classes, is you have to take what you see on social media with a grain of salt, consider your source. Again, going back to my shirt from the dry cleaner, people are less likely to post, gosh, my third grader had a fabulous day at school today on social media. And they're more likely to post that, something happened on the playground, or my teacher gave them a bad grade, or I don't like something that's going on. And so again, like that's why we have, we used to call Pathways to Communication. We now call Who to Call on the website. And I really urge parents to reach out to their kids' teachers. If the teacher isn't satisfactory, go to the principal and work your way through the chain of information, because that's where you're actually going to get reliable information, much more so than through the social media.
How has the ADA compliance for communication changed the district's outreach to parents? And I know
This is
many
like
of
my-
us in the room got a sneak preview of all of it in
Yeah.
September.
This is my big lift for this year, so I can talk about this for hours, but come April 24th this year, the district will need to be compliant on all of our electronic platforms with something called WCAG 2.1 AA, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which ensure that platforms that we are using to communicate are accessible to people regardless of disability. So our website is very good in terms of compliance. It's something that we've been aware of on our website and been working since I got here 8 years ago, really, to ensure compliance. However, the big change is now it's not just our website that we're responsible for, it's any other platforms that we use. And so that's Schoology, that's Bus Status, that's School Cafe, that's Power School, it's Board Docs,
everything. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's a huge challenge. We have a group within the administration that have been working on this for well over a year now. We have something like 500 platforms that we've identified that we use in this district that need to be compliant. Some of them are working towards compliance, some of them are not. And so in those cases, we're trying to pressure them. We're trying to create a paper trail because we can't drop Power School in the middle of the school year if they're not compliant, let's say. I'm not saying they're not, but or another platform that we use that, an academic resource that teachers use. And so we're working with other school districts, we're working with other intermediate units, our intermediate unit, and other intermediate units with organizations. Like I'm a member of the Pennsylvania School Public Relations Association, PenSPRA, and the national organization, NSPRA, and school districts throughout the country are working on these vendors because we're not the only ones that use Schoology or whatever to pressure them to be compliant. But basically, there are things that we can do that are sort of easy lifts to ensure that our communications are compliant. That's ensuring that we use proper color contrast, that we use fonts that are readable by a screen reader, that we not upload images with information in them that a screen reader can't read. So any of the folks that are in community organizations that have sent things and flyers to my office this year have gotten an email back saying, we are no longer accepting PDFs and flyers to go up on our website. Please just send me the information and we will create an accessible post about your organization or your event. And then we're asking the HSA newsletter editors, rather than including a PDF with information on it, to link back to the post that we've created that's accessible. And that ensures that people who use translation software to access our information, who use screen readers, who can't use a mouse and need to tab from section to section to get through a document, can use their accessibility tools to access information the way other people can. And to me, it's sort of the electronic version of adding ramps and elevators. Yes, you can use the steps, but everybody can use the ramp and the elevator as well. Everybody is more easily able to read a document where the color contrast is good, or to see a picture that has a caption with it.
And just for clarification, this is a federal mandate.
It's under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So that's another difference. In the past, accessibility complaints went through the Office of Civil Rights. And so people would make a complaint and then the Office of Civil Rights would work. Like when I got here, there were some outstanding OCR complaints against our website that we worked with the Office of Civil Rights to ensure that they were corrected. Now, under the Americans with Disability Act, the district could get for having non-compliant information.
So how do you keep in check all of the resources that the teachers are recommending? Because that seems like that would be a enormous list.
Yeah, so it's a lot. Like I've been training the teachers. I've been going from school to school along with our instructional technology leads, Kim Phillips, Laura Hudemeyer, and Jen Goldberg, to talk to teachers about excuse me, raising their awareness of these guidelines, and having them think about and look at the resources that they're using. And the challenge is like a teacher knows if there's a child in their classroom that needs accommodations. What we don't necessarily know is what about that child's parents or grandparents? Are they colorblind? Are they, have a mobility issue with their hands that they can't use a mouth? And so that's why it's really important work that we go through all this. But like I said, there's some almost 500 platforms that we've identified. And so they've all been assigned to different people in the administration. The curriculum team has their resources, transportation has their resources. And they're reaching out to those organizations to say, what are you doing to ensure compliance by this deadline? It's a huge lift. I'm not gonna lie. We are in a good place relative to other districts. Some, depending on the size of your municipal population, you either have a deadline of this April or next April. So if it's a district in a smaller municipality, they have another year. But because we serve Lower Merion and Narberth and our population is well over 50,000, for us, it's 6 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you ensure that staff and teachers are informed and aligned on issues before that information is shared?
Don't know if I can it can guarantee that they're aligned, but they're
Okay.
informed. So usually
The
our
intention is there.
yeah. Usually when we send out information, it usually obviously goes first to the board. The school board is the first to know, and then we send it to staff, and then we send it to families. Like that's just our general, any, letter that's going out or information that's going out, that's how it's sent.
Okay, great. And just looking ahead, what do you see as the greatest challenge and or the greatest opportunity for your department in the next several years?
Well, this whole accessibility thing is a big challenge, and it's not just my department, it's across the whole district administration. It's not something that one department can do. We're obviously working really closely with IT. But I think the opportunity is that, I'm hoping Dr. Ranelli is going to be here for a while, and the stable leadership will enable us to, we're redoing the strategic plan. We've made a lot of progress on that, with community input and staff input and student input. And so really sort of re-upping the strategic plan, identifying our community priorities for the schools, and then really being able to dig into delivering on those priorities. Despite all the leadership changes at the top, there have been a lot of really good steps taken in terms of bringing in systems to track data, so that we can actually look at what we're doing and have measurables and say, like, this is where we need improvement, or this is where one grade in one school, like we can hone in to that level, needs to work. And so I think the opportunity is, I'm very hopeful that Dr. Ranelli is going to be here for a while, that he will have an opportunity to build that trust and confidence of the community. And then that will enable us to, once again, like, all start working together on what we have all are working on with the strategic plan to identify as district priorities and goals.
That sounds great. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna, that was our last question for you. We're gonna open it up.
A lot.
Yeah, thank you. We're gonna open it up. Are there any questions in the room?
We did talk about a lot, so there
We
might not be
did.
today.
Anyone?
Well, I'll ask a question.
Okay.
What do you like most about your job, or what brings you like the most joy in the work?
Oh, that's easy, when I get to work with kids.
Yeah.
Our kids are amazing. Like, I love, whether I'm just in a school to take pictures. I also work with a few of the student organizations, just helping them do logistics for events and things like that. Or, if we're getting media coverage and we have kids that have done outstanding things. Our kids are so impressive. Like, even we've had students coming into the strategic planning meetings, and sharing their input and their experiences. They're amazing. Like, that's definitely hands down easiest question, best part.
It's been nice to see this addition to the committee.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And they came right in and started speaking up. I was
Yeah,
like,
and
"You
with
go."
some great perspective.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Sarah?
Hi, can you talk a bit about what your responsibility is or isn't when it comes to the school board? And what support they get or don't get when it comes to communication?
Yeah, so
Wait, can we say that again?
with the school board, like.
Oh, with the
yeah.
school board.
So the superintendent works for the school board, right? So he's really like the school board's only employee, and then the administration works for the superintendent. So organizationally, that's how it works. As far as communications for the school board, I do the board meeting highlights every month. If they want to have a meeting and they need publicity for that. But there's also a board secretary, Denise LaPera is the board secretary. So she does things like minutes and agendas, and things like that. So, once the board enacts policy or starts, a program, then that's where I would come in and take over the communication of it. For example, the bus patrol, which is the cameras on the buses that we started in August of 2025, prior to the start of the school year. So the board approved the bus patrol program. That's the board decision. My job was then to come in and do publicity so that the community was aware that the program was starting. And so we actually got national news coverage for it. We got a lot of coverage where we put signs out, we were in newsletters, we worked with the commissioners, all that kind of thing to raise awareness of the program. So it's sort of, my role comes in once the board makes a decision to then communicate that.
Similarly, when the school start times changed, you had all of the communication going out to the community, the
Right.
change of the school zones, like the times when it was a school
Right.
zone for traffic and things like that.
Right. And I'll work also with, again, with community organizations, with the township and the police as appropriate, to ensure that we're coordinated. So the township has a public information officer whose role is very similar to mine. And so she and I are in communication a lot, because we're a part of the township, and so we share each other's messaging and ensure consistency and things like that.
Any other
Any
questions?
questions online? No?
No? Is there anything you wish we would have asked you?
Or
that
anything you
want
wish
to
parents know?
promote or
there's someone
let
waving.
parents know.
Oh.
Oh, someone is on. Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Wait, hold
let's
on.
see. Hold on one second. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. And thank you, Amy, for everything you do. It's like a lot. My son is in elementary school, so the district seems like a Leviathan. So it's nice to know there's like point people that make things possible. And I've asked you a few questions, and I'm a room parent, so if I'm asking you a question, there's probably like 5 other parents who are asking me. So thank you for that. A quick question. What is, if there is a protocol, I'm guessing there is, for the ICE and the schools? Is there, and how are caregivers and parents being informed of this? Because there's a lot of talk around, there's a lot of questions. It hasn't been addressed yet. There's in Berks County like an $87 million ICE compound. Just we're, starting to put the pieces together. How are we prepared for it? I
So-
hope it doesn't happen, but
Of last year, that our acting superintendent at the time was Dr. Mussolini. And he and all the members of the school board issued a letter, so this is January of 2025, reinforcing that our school district abides by our school board's local policies. And we have policies that you can find in the building belonging section of the website, having to do with immigration, naturalization, status, and citizenship. People may not know this. You don't have to be a citizen to attend Lower Merion schools. You have to be a resident. So we actually don't even ask for citizenship information that's not part of the registration process. And then we have had trainings for all of our school office staff and our security guards at all the schools. You can't just walk into any of our schools. No one can. And so it doesn't matter if you have a badge or a piece of paper, you still can't just walk into one of our schools. And so the staff have all been trained and retrained on our policies on that. And if someone were to come to a school with some sort of piece of paper indicating that they should have access to a student or staff member, that person would need to wait. The piece of paper would be reviewed by legal counsel, and the person would not be getting into the school any more than anybody else who just walked up to a school would be getting into the school.
And how I feel like maybe we might need a refresher or something. Like parents we're all talking, we're all wondering, like what is, because the laws changed this past year about private places, or the ice can go into public places and like the parking lots. And I know sometimes the kids have recess in the parking lot. Like what?
So nothing has changed since that letter was issued a year ago by Dr. Mussolina and the school board.
Mhm.
We abide by our local policies. Our policies are all on the website. And again, if you go to the building belonging section, there's a whole page about citizenship. And that has all, you can link to all of the policies that govern our response. And I can tell you that, yes, the staff has, I mean, there was a reminder that went out to all principals within the last, I'm going to say 2-3 weeks, about, ensuring that everyone in their buildings understands appropriate response. So.
And should that come back to us somehow, like the parents and the caregivers? Because I think the police had a meeting or something, but I haven't heard anything from like our school about it, addressing it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a decision that Dr. Anelli would make, whether to issue a communication on that specific topic. But again, nothing has changed here in the district in the past, year plus on the policies on that.
So it
Oh,
sounds like if anyone is asking you, you can
yeah.
refer them to the same place that Amy just said, the building belonging section, and that there's a section on
Citizenship, it's like immigration status.
So you
citizenship.
can kind of help spread the word to that to anyone who's asking you, that that's where they can go to find the current information.
Okay. And should we maybe ask our principal to address it? It just seems like a community kind of thing that could be addressed like as a community somehow.
I mean, I can certainly take that feedback back to Dr. Italy, and if it's something that he wants to send something home about, that would be his decision. We do face a challenge of how much of what is going on in the outside world does the school district comment on or take a position on, or send a letter home about, especially in a world where there is so much going on a daily basis. And, again, I think if parents have a specific concern, we have those lines of communication to talk to a teacher, to talk to a principal, then go to the administration if there's not, a satisfactory response. But we also, there can be challenges in responding to
Mhm.
the news of the world that can take us off task, and our task is educating children in our buildings.
Yeah, I just think the general tone is people are really nervous and nervous about this issue, and I'm not hearing anyone I'm not hearing it being addressed, except for that time the police had I think they might have had a Zoom. I don't know what they had, a Zoom or a meeting on it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And as Amy said, she can circle back and, pass along that information. And certainly we can do that as well through the ISC. So thank you. Thank you for
Thank
bringing.
you. Thank you.
Cicely, do you have a question?
Hi, Cicely.
Hi. Yes. Hi.
Good morning.
Amy, thank you so much for taking your time to do this. It was really educational, and I really appreciate that you have an incredible responsibility in terms of communication, covering everything. So thank you so much. I watched you on ABC for years, so so glad you're here. I actually have a follow-up question and about with respect to ICE, and I'm not on social media a ton just because I like to protect my peace. But I did hear that at Lower Marion High School that some kids walked out, I guess, in support of, kind of peaceful protest against ICE, and they were given detentions. Is that true? So my first question, is that true? I'll let you answer that.
Sure. So there were about a dozen kids, I think it was last Wednesday or maybe the Wednesday the week before, who walked out, and they were given consequences for missing class, and leaving campus. So that's as long as I've been here, that's sort of been the policy when it comes to student protests. Students can absolutely exercise their right to free speech. But if they break the school rules by leaving campus or missing a class, then there are consequences to breaking those rules. And that's what they are subject to.
Okay, so thank you for that very historically corporate answer. So I appreciate that. So is there any conversation or discussion around, like, so is there a way that students could participate in something that was nationwide? Because that is, it's a current event and it's something that's going on. And I would think that the district wouldn't want to send the message that we don't support, our communities in terms of, Black and brown people being targeted.
Right. So again, students can absolutely exercise their right to free speech. They're not, held against their will inside a school building. But there are consequences to missing class. There are consequences to leaving a closed campus, and those are, just as with any other sort of form of peaceful protest, there are consequences to taking
All
those
right.
actions. And
Let me ask it in a different way then. Okay, so like, let's say, my daughter wanted to participate. Can I write her out? Is there a way for them to participate and not get penalized by the school?
So parents can excuse up to 10 absences a year. There are
Okay.
excusable absence reasons are listed in the district policy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Cicely. Are there any other questions online? Or in the room?
Or in the chat?
All right, I have one more question. Okay. So Amy, I know that I'm pretty sure you had, I think, 3 sons maybe go to Harriton. And I'm sorry, LM, you said? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry about that.
Sorry.
What do you do personally? I was a journalism major. I'm not working in it, but how do you handle having to communicate something that you don't necessarily agree with? Just like I know like you can separate it's a job, but how do you kind of reconcile, like what kind of process do you go through to be able to do that and have it be authentic?
I think the answer to that is just to tell the truth. So, if it's, I'm not necessarily in this job communicating my opinions. So, I communicate district policy, school board decisions, messages from the superintendent or whatever. So I'm naming my sources, so to speak. Like, it's not my opinion.
It's factual.
Right. And that's, I've always done that as a journalist. And so I think one of the reasons that I was attracted to this job in the first place is that I genuinely love the school district and this community. And I really do think that the people here are working in the best interest of students. And so it aligns with my own moral compass. I believe in the work we do here. And so I don't really have, I don't find myself in a difficult position. I can't really.
I imagine it would come up in like the board highlights if like somebody says something, maybe in like a community.
Right. And that's why you'll find
we just report it.
It's just factual, someone talked about this, so they did.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, I need to turn back to the ICE stuff and the protest stuff. So I'm kind of shocked to hear that was the school district's response. It's dramatically different than my partner has a son in another school district, and they handled it dramatically differently. They supported the students in their walkout. They even staffed the walkout and had teachers, like escorting them and supervising them and making sure that everything went peacefully outside. Due to that, more than half the students participated. And when you talk about communication, that how you respond and how a district responds to students participating communicates the values of the district. And it doesn't seem like the response of giving detention for participating in this is a true representation of the values of Lower Merion School District, the values of the parents that are around. And so I would ask you to take back to the superintendent a reconsideration of how we respond and support students that want to express their right to peaceful protest, their right to the First Amendment right, all of that in a way that is supportive without being super destructive, and you can't have a walkout every day, right? I understand that, and there has to be a balance for sure. But in this situation, it does affect schools, right? Teachers are getting pulled out of their schools. Kids are getting pulled out of the schools by ICE. So it is relevant to school. It's not just any kind of political thing that's happening. And so I would just, if we want to properly communicate the values of the school that are actions and support or lack of support for students wanting to do something like a walkout properly matches our values.
So I can think of 2, 3 prior walkouts in my 8 years here. When I first started, like literally the first week I started, there was a walkout because of the Parkland shooting in Florida, and it was a school gun violence walkout. There were hundreds of kids from both high schools that participated. School board members were there. News media was there. There was a walkout after the George Floyd murder that was held on a weekend on Arnold Field. Again, hundreds of students, school board members were taking a knee with students. There, after the Roe v. Wade decision, there was also a student walkout. And again, hundreds of, I don't know about, probably a couple hundred in that one as well. So the school, to some extent, treated all of those the same way, in that we notified Lower Merion Township Police. So if kids were crossing Montgomery Avenue, they weren't going to get hit by cars. But when kids miss class, there are consequences for that. And that's consistent. The campus was more open when those other protests occurred than it is now. And so there are consequences for leaving campus. When they did the Parkland related protest, they didn't leave the campus. They walked just around the Lower Merion High School campus and around the Harriton High School campus. They never actually left campus. And they did it during lunch and learn. So they weren't missing class. So there are some differences. Again, there were approximately 12 students that took part in this protest that was related to immigration enforcement. And some of them went up that way, some of them went down that way. They weren't necessarily holding signs. It was not organized. It was not, or I will say, it did not appear to have been as organized or to have had the like bulk of the student body behind it in a way that those prior ones that I've seen over the past 8 years had been. And, again, there are things in the middle of the day where there are fewer consequences for missing class. So I don't think the school district wants to be in a position of encouraging students to leave school and not be in their classes, because that is our primary mission, is to educate students in school. But there's also, I don't think anything is being done to stop students from exercising their voices.
Well, detentions are being done.
Again, there are consequences. Every peaceful protest, sitting in at a lunch counter in the 60s, if you were violating a local ordinance by doing that, there were consequences. I mean, my mother was marched with Dr. King. She was a civil rights activist. My brother was an anti-Vietnam War activist. There was arrested. I mean, there were consequences to actions. and it's up to the individual person to decide, is that consequence, morally worth it to me to take this action? I think the school has rules. You're supposed to be in class. You're supposed to stay on campus. I don't think that the school wants to be in a position of bending those rules in certain cases and then having to do
Well,
enrollments or others.
but-
It's not my decision.
Without going too deep into this rabbit hole, which is, we could definitely do. And just like in the interest of time and everything else, I want to suggest that there's always a place to write like a comment for community comments to the board, because if there's a change made in that, or if there is an organized protest for it, I think it would come from the board or Dr. Ranelli, and not from Amy's office, who's just communicating what's happening. So I don't want to go too deep into that, because if we're looking for a policy change or something like that, it's not going to happen here, and it's not going to come out of Amy's office. So just like thinking, in order to achieve what anyone's looking to achieve, I think talking about it at a policy committee meeting, submitting emails into there's a message in the chat. Submitting emails into community comments might be a good avenue to get started, if that makes sense. Is that?
I don't see.
Maybe they only message your computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bisley, is this something you want us to read?
No, it's fine.
Just so your name pop up. Okay. I can't.
Okay.
The computer's
Oh,
far from
the
us.
computer's far. Anyway, so I can't really see. Okay. Anyway, all right. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you
for
very
being here.
much. For giving
All
us
right.
an overview.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.